5 suspects arrested. Following early morning police operation in Dutch Quarter, MP Egbert Duran. The situation that transpired in Parliament, I find it quite distasteful on Friday. Interview with Alston Lawrence on the islands of the Dutch Caribbean. We went to Washington, D.C. We joined the conference. The salary cabinet is set for that one chief of staff. The secretary and the driver said MP La Cruz. From the island, St. Martin, this is SXM Daily News for July 1st, 2026. The police force of St. Martin, KPSM, arrested 5 male suspects during the early hours of Wednesday, July 1st, 2026, during a patrol in the Dutch Quarter area. At approximately 3:30 a.m., police officers conducting routine patrols along Brasilia Road observed a black Hyundai i10 carrying 5 male occupants. Officers became suspicious after noticing that 2 of the men inside the vehicle were dressed entirely in black and had their faces covered. Given the unusual circumstances, officers decided to stop and inspect the vehicle. Due to the number of occupants and in the interest of officer safety, additional police patrols were requested to assist at the scene. Acting under KPSM's Stop and Search Authority, as well as the provisions of the Firearms Ordinance and the Opium Drugs Ordinance, officers conducted a thorough search of both the occupants and the vehicle. During the search, officers discovered and confiscated a firearm along with several other items believed to be intended for use in criminal activities. As a result, all 5 occupants were immediately arrested. The suspects, identified by their initials JA, FFL, SR, GDL, R, AMN, and VJR, were transported to the Philipsburg Police Station, where they remain in custody for questioning pending the ongoing investigation. The firearm, the additional items recovered during the search, and the Hyundai i10 have all been seized as evidence. Detectives are actively investigating the circumstances surrounding this case, including the origin of the firearm and the suspects' intentions at the time they were stopped. KPSM continues to intensify proactive patrols throughout the island as part of its ongoing efforts to prevent violent crime and ensure the safety and security of the community. The police force encourages the public to remain vigilant and to report any suspicious activity by contacting the Police Dispatch Center at +1 721 542 22222 or the anonymous tip line at 9300. MP Egbert Duran. The situation that transpired in Parliament, I find it quite distasteful on Friday, and I was going to ignore it until your last comment, where you asked if anybody had something constructive to say. No, Madam Chair. Again, I want to remind you that we are all equally elected members of Parliament, and it suggests that the dialogue should always remain respectful. Yes, I might be stern on certain things that I'm passionate about, but I never get out of line and be disrespectful. And what starts to become disrespectful is when different rules are being applied to different members.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And, not to lament, but I have some questions. But before I start with the questions, the situation that transpired here in Parliament between myself and you, I find it quite distasteful on Friday. And I was going to ignore it until your last comment where you asked if anybody have something constructive to say. Now, Madam Chair, again, I want to remind you that we are all equally elected members of Parliament, and the dialogue should always remain respectful. Yes, I might be stern on certain things that I'm passionate about, but I never get out of line and be disrespectful. And where it starts to become disrespectful is when different rules are being applied to different members of Parliament. Now, I remember, like I mentioned, I was the only person opting to speak. You asked me to turn off my mic and ask any other member of Parliament if they have something to add in a central committee meeting. That is beyond disrespectful, Madam Chair. To add insult to injury, in that same meeting, MP Labega brought a very valid point forward in terms of adjustment on the report. I remember on February 5th, I believe, of this year, similar situation where I asked to add something to a report to GB based on what I mentioned in the Central Committee. You told me it was not possible. I then went on to say, but you are the signatory to the report, so therefore, if you believe it should be changed based on what happened, you told me it's not possible, it's not possible. But then you made way above and beyond exceptions for my colleague who is part of the coalition and coincidentally part of your party, Madam Chair. Again, I'm saying this to say that I believe we all should be treated fairly, and I would like you to refrain from the behavior. I'm not going to use the word, but I would like you to refrain from that type of behavior because it hinders the progress of Parliament and it hinders us as members of Parliament from executing our job. That is my humble request. I'll move on, Madam Chair. I have questions to the Ministry of TIAT. I would like to know what commitments were previously made to the market vendors. I know that a motion was passed in here. So this is TIAT and the Ministry of Finance because it was mentioned over and over through you, Madam Chair, that a discussion has been ongoing, how to give them relief. I would like to know what has been done in that regard, which of those commitments have been fulfilled, and which remain outstanding. Once again, what is the timeline to resolving the marketplace situation? I read somewhere that the permit was finally granted. Is that the case? When will the works commence? Because I know sometimes they start, they stop, they start, they stop. So I would like to know what is a clear timeline in terms of completion date for such. What amount has been paid out to the vendors so far? Or what sort of relief have they received thus far since the last budget debate? And what is the last version of the marketplace? Can the last version of the marketplace be provided to Parliament? Also, has an assessment directly or indirectly been conducted to determine how much revenue the vendors have lost? Because I know there was a 6-month plan for them to be there. I think it's over, no, it's definitely over 2 years now that they are out of their regular flow. Can an update be given in terms of their revenue loss or potential revenue loss? Through you, Madam Chair, to the Minister of ECYS, I know that a point was mentioned, I think a little over a year ago, in regards to having air conditioning in the auditorium. I would like to know, is that still ongoing? Is it now in the current CapEx, or are there other structural changes that need to happen prior to this taking place? Also, I would like to know, through you, Madam Chair, based on the budget, if the Minister of ECYS can explain what concrete youth programs are funded in the budget 2026, how many young people will benefit, and what is being done extra different from budget 2025 for after-school programs in 2026, if any. Through you, Madam Chair, I would like to ask a direct general question to the government. Well, two actually. One is based on the reduction in the cost of fuel at the gasoline stations. What is the latest updates on what is the latest updates in terms of relief for the public? Secondly, what concrete plans are being executed now in terms of relief for the utility bills? So two separate questions. That will be all for now, Madam Chair, and I will send my remaining questions in writing. And I just want to get some clarity. Based on the questions that I asked verbally, they are noted down, and then what I send in writing is also taken up, because all that I asked verbally is not what I have written down. I just want to be clear from a chair perspective that is taking place. Thank you.
MP Ardwell Irian first. I'd like to start with a comment made by MP Egbert Doran. I'm happy that he mentioned it. I also was disappointed in how we handled the level of Parliament. As I said before, I think this procedure has lowered the expectations of people for this to receive any more, and how low we have gotten, and how they operate, and of course, the support by the coalition. And I can understand that we want to be more efficient.
First, I'd like to start with the comments made by MP Doran. I'm happy that he mentioned it. I also was disappointed, kind of been disappointed in how we handle the level of Parliament. As I said before, I think this presidium has lowered the expectations of people of St. Martin. I don't even think they have expectations for this presidium anymore on how low we have gotten and how they operate. And of course, the support by the coalition. And I can understand that we want to be more efficient in Parliament, but I mean, we barely get meetings, ministers barely respond, coalition members barely participate. So I could understand again why members of the coalition just want to avoid as much debate in Parliament, but it's getting to a level of being embarrassing. And I hope, Madam Chair, in addition to that, I know the staff is actually working on this. We have a lot of debate about efficiency and coming to work and who's working. I would hope when the public sees the published attendance and voting records, et cetera, that in Parliament, you actually get to see who is actually working and being efficient in Parliament and actually earning their dollar and their keep. Madam Chair, through you, I'd like to ask the Minister of Finance. Minister, in your presentation, you listed the tourist levy in your presentation, and I believe also linked it to 2027 in your presentation. But as a Parliament, we haven't gotten this legislation as yet. We also haven't gotten GHI as yet. So what is the realistic timeline of us getting this? Obviously, you see, it'll be supported pretty quickly. As soon as we get it, we get a presentation, we send our questions in writing, and then we only got to deal with the OVA. So there might be opportunity to actually see this realized in the budget 2027, but where are we at now? So I'm kind of worried that you're saying that, through you, Madam Chair, the Minister is saying that unanimously the Council of Ministers have approved Budget 2027 is going ahead, approved, with items inside of there that we have not even discussed in Parliament as yet. So I don't know that trajectory of government and Parliament, we were even aligned in terms of that. As I said before also, in 2025 September, the Minister you mentioned, the Madam Chair, the Minister mentioned the dividend withholding tax. I don't see that reflected in Budget 2026. If it's in Budget 2027 as an income, where are we at today? When is it going to come to Parliament? When are we going to discuss this? I don't see the alignment with all of the revenue generating goals that need legislation. I see the Minister of Rami, and I believe even yourself mentioned the road fund. The minister made it clear that in Budget 2027, he said it will be in Budget 2027. If a tax law is being established, it has to be by January 1st. You can't establish it in the middle of the year. So when are we in Parliament? We have July recess. We start back in August. We have to open the Parliament. When are we as members of Parliament going to discuss the road fund that's in Budget 27? When are we going to see this legislation? When are we going to discuss this fund? When is this fund going to be established? Who is on this fund, right? What is the timeline pertaining to these things? It really feels like for the last 2 years, and the public can actually go through this timeline, the expectations that are being set by this government and the actual deliverables are so far and wide that it becomes super disappointing in the end. Every budget debate, and I guess you're saying the question, but every budget debate, we have these presentations, and when we go back and check the presentations of the last 2 budget debates, 85% of the stuff that was presented has not been done. 85%. That's insane. So we're just presenting a pie in the sky to the people, and I think we don't even provide hope anymore. We don't even provide hope anymore. So just to be clear, I would like to have clarity on those things of the past 2 budgets, which all of you have in your presentations that were not accomplished. We have the Minister, you mentioned the flyover fees as a revenue generating measure in 2025. We didn't get it in 2026. The tax on the pensioners has been pushed 2025, 2024, 2026. We don't see that legislation. So we could go down for TIAD and TIA's budget. They had the Agency for Agriculture, where we don't see legislation. That was 2025 and 2026. Is that budgeted in 2026 so that the Ministry of TIA can execute this agency? And if so, where are we with that legislation? So yes, if it's budgeted, there's one, but then where are we with the legislation with that. The, the chair lady in the meeting of agriculture mentioned to the Minister of TIAD, I am not sure if that entity that the minister was chosen is the right way to go. So are we still going in that trajectory of that entity that the minister wants to do, or are we going a foundation? What is the entity that we're trying to establish? And then also the governing program. I go through the governing program, I watch the budget, and almost none of the policies or none of the expectations of the government program I see back in the budget. So what is the government basing their route with? Because the government program is based on a lot of policies and ambition, etc. But in your own budget, as I mentioned before, it does not mention new policies that align with your own governing program. MP La Cruz mentioned something critical. Vendors that are owed, and have we established the amount that's owed to vendors? We have MPs in here that mentioned, yes, bills started, bills was there before, and I agree, and I said it before, I would really want a forensic audit of how and when these bills started to accumulate. The government lost a recent court case to a car rental company. I believe they had to pay $200,000 because advices were not done. And and like I said, who was there and that had to deal with these advices, right? Which SG who was there that was even promoted to the cabinet of the Prime Minister, right, that had to deal with these advices. So I would really want, right, that we get a forensic audit on, one, all the car rentals, all the car rental companies are owned by government, and what timeline, and when did it start? And then we could go on, right, for all the cleaning companies. How much money do we owe cleaning companies that are out there, vendors, and I hope you're listening. And when did it start? And did they have an advice? And under which SG and under whose leadership?
If something has changed with the formation of a cabinet, when I say that, I mean I know it's one legal, and the salary cabinet is set for that one chief of staff. Secretary, a driver, if anything, has changed in that policy, because watching the budget of the Prime Minister's cabinet, I see an increase of 205,559 guilders. That's a 19.66% increase. So I would like to know why that is, because I didn't see that in the other cabinet, said MP Francisco La Cruz on the floor of Parliament on Friday, 26, 2026.
I'd like to ask if something has changed with the formation of a cabinet. When I say that, I mean, I know it's one legal and the salary cap is set for that, one chief of staff, secretary, a driver. If anything has changed in that policy, because Madam Chair Lady, watching the budget of the cabinet of the Prime Minister, I see that there's an increase of 205,559 guilders. That's a 19.66% increase. So I would like to know why is that, because I didn't see that in the other cabinets. So first, if something changed with the policy on, and then why this increase. The same, an increase for the cabinet of the gevolmachtigde minister in the Netherlands, 580,705 guilders. That's an increase of 30.08%. Madam Chair Lady, I truly believe if it's needed and that something is going to come out of it, I am for it. But with what I've seen in the last 2 years, there should have been a budget cut there. That is my opinion. Too much. Too much, Madam Chair Lady. So I would like to hear from the Minister of Finance, actually, because this is her budget, why this took place. And Madam Chair Lady, a question that I asked numerous times before concerning payments. When a individual could say that someone got paid more than they should have been paid, if the minister could give me a clear explanation of the route that it takes. An advice is made, it goes to this department, disapprove, 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 this, and who is the last person to say, click pay? Because for heaven's sakes, I can't understand how anyone could get paid more than they should have gotten paid after so many people watched and saw that advice. So if the minister could explain that too, that was not a question that was in my list. So I'd like to add it to that.
Your social and health insurance is your social and health insurances.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
Your social and health insurances.
What happens when today's digital storytellers meet the place where every story begins? We at the St. Martin Library answered that question by welcoming local influencers for its successful Influencer Open House, Discover Your Library, highlighting the library as a vibrant space for inspiration, creativity, and connection. The St. Martin Library hosted its Influencer Open House Discover Your Library on Saturday, June 27, 2026, welcoming more than 40 attendees for an afternoon focused on exploring library services, programs, and digital resources. The event brought together members of the public, families, local influencers, and community stakeholders to experience the library's offerings and to encourage engagement with reading, literacy, and lifelong learning. The initiative aimed to highlight library services and digital platforms, promote reading, and strengthen community engagement with literacy and lifelong learning. Local influencers, including R. Wilson and S. Richardson, participated in the event and supported outreach efforts by sharing their experiences with their audiences. Participants will share content from the event across social media platforms in the coming days, further extending awareness of the library's services. Event organizer D. Matthew York described the initiative as part of ongoing efforts to strengthen a culture of reading within the community. This is only the start. As a community, we have allowed reading to take a back seat in our daily lives, but literacy remains the foundation of growth, imagination, and opportunity. Our goal is to reconnect people with books, create spaces that inspire learning, and remind both young people and adults that reading is not only educational, it is enjoyable, empowering, and essential to building stronger communities. Junior Queen of St. Martin, ex. Zoe Fitzpatrick Aventurin, also attended the event and expressed support for reading, noting that reading is enjoyable and indicating her intention to visit the library more frequently. She selected several books during her visit, encouraging reading among young people across the island. The event also resulted in new library memberships and increased engagement with library services, including access to the Libby app and the National Library of the Netherlands, KB, e-book platform. The St. Martin Library provides access to stories and learning resources that support creativity and education. The library thanks all attendees and partners for their participation and support. Following the event, the library remains committed to offering programs that promote reading, creativity, and community engagement for residents of all ages.
The interview with Alston Lawrence is basically about working with a delegation on the islands of the Dutch Caribbean. We went to Washington, D.C. We joined the conference call on the right of return and self-determination. We joined with other people in the world. We're also going to colonial situations where they're displaced people who know that they are one, but still are being ruled by other people and double colonized.
We basically went with a delegation from the Dutch Caribbean, or the islands of the Dutch Caribbean. We went to Washington, D.C., and then at Washington, D.C., we joined a conference called The Right of Return and Self-Determination. So we joined other peoples in the world who are also going through colonial situations or situations where they're displaced, people who know that they are one, but still are being ruled by other people. And as St. Martin, a place that's double colonized by the French and the Dutch, our story was well taken over there, especially from Aruba, Curacao, other islands around there. Station was also represented, and all of our stories about colonialism showed one simple pattern. Everywhere that's colonized goes through the same things. Supervision here, governors here, and stuff like that. So it was just really a meeting of different peoples of the world going through colonialism and working a way out of it by sharing their experiences and where they're going with it.
All right. And you're here today to enjoy yourself?
No, I'm here today because it's Mango Fest. How much? I think I drink 3 of them in this rum punch alone. But yeah, I'm here to support Ebenezer, this 4th annual Mango Fest. Do a great job. Anything that brings the community together and other communities together is a really good event. So we're really happy to be here, of course.
Forecast tonight through Thursday midday. Fair to partly cloudy. Isolated showers are possible. Surface winds. Today through Thursday midday, east to east, southeast with a gentle to moderate breeze at 8 to 14 km/h. Higher gusts are possible. State of the sea. Slight waves. Swells 2 to 4 feet. Outlook through Friday midday. Fair to partly cloudy. Isolated showers are likely. And now your 3-day forecast.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social and health insurances.
BBC News report: the United Nations said tens of thousands of Venezuelans face hunger, homelessness, and disease as the country struggles with the aftermath of last week's double earthquake. Tens of thousands of others are still unaccounted for. In the worst-hit areas, the UN said basic services collapsed and food shortages are widespread, with communication almost impossible. And the BBC's Latin America correspondent, Will Grant, reported from the coastal town of Carabaleta in La Guaira, one of the hardest-hit areas by the earthquakes.
Although some have decided there is literally nothing more they can do, there is also this urbanization in Los Cocos. Now, this was made up of 12 government tower blocks, many of which were basically 14 stories high. And all 12 of them are either collapsed or completely uninhabitable. There's only one or two left standing. The rest is this sea of rubble, and in it there are dozens, scores of rescue workers, but they're not really rescue workers. They're basically family members just doing what they can, using whatever tools they can find to continue to burrow in, using the torches off their cell phones to try and get in further. They're not giving up hope yet, from what I'm hearing. Yes, some recognise that they are just looking for bodies at this stage, but one man up just there, up on the roof, screamed out when he was asked to be quiet that he's still looking for his daughter and isn't going to give up until he finds her. One of those still going is Samuel, who says he'll stop at nothing in the search for his brother Edward.
I'm 15 years old. Do you think a 15-year-old boy should be doing this? The authorities should be here instead. You have to rent any heavy machinery you need because the authorities are sending them to the places of the rich and important people. We have human beings in here. They are people, not dogs or animals. And they also deserve help.
Before too long, we will see the grim moment where the number of disappeared becomes reflected in the number of dead. For the time being, the number of dead is about those who've been taken to morgues like this temporary one in La Guaira, set up at the port. We've seen family members sitting under tarpaulins outside where they have brought their loved ones to be registered, where they will be going through various processes of formally registering them by their identity numbers and by their fingerprints. And then from there, they will be transferred for burial or for cremation. We were told by one of the main officials here that if people cannot afford that, the state will cover the costs. And now we've seen them put up black plastic sheeting to preserve the privacy and the dignity of the families and the dead.
This is our SXM Daily Newscast. Thank you for joining us.